News Talk 1400 KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series. It's a 1-hour perspective on the events and the people whose lives have contributed to the heritage of Boone County. Listen each Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The KFRU Heritage Series. From News Talk 1400 KFRU.
Welcome to the Heritage Show again, and we speaking of myself, learn so much and get introduced to so much by doing this show. And I think we're probably in our, we've done half a year of these programs. John Duncan's brainchild, and happy to be able to work with him on this. And he and I come up with some ideas of what would be good topics. And I think we have one today because we're going to go west of town just a bit. And we're going to talk about an area that has been in the news the last couple of years because the attention of a reality show. But we're going to go back to the history of this with the Bechtolds running the Midway Truck Plaza. Is that Donna Bechtold? It's nice to meet you, first of all. I had not had a chance to meet you until we sit down to do this program. What is the official name of the area out there?
Well, we just call it Midway. We refer, and we have always referred to the Travel Plaza as Midway Truck Stop. I like Travel Plaza better, but Truck Stop seems to,
And Joe Bechtold is here also. Joe, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
When did you get, obviously, growing up in the family, but when do you have earliest memories of being out there at Midway and being around that area and environment?
Well, we spent a lot of time out there because when Dad, basically he bought it in '78, and at the time I was kind of in, I guess I would have been 12 years old, and so right off the, pretty quickly after buying it, he started building, and from, I don't know, from about 1980 until I graduated from college, he was always building one building or another, and so it seems like just because he was out there and Mom worked out there as well, at times we spent a lot of time out there.
Let's talk about what it was like when it was first bought. What are your memories in 1978 when you all bought Midway at that point in time?
Well, first of all, when I hear the word bought, that implies that we went and wrote a check. We didn't. The bank bought it for us, basically, and we ended up running it until we could pay off the loan. So anyway, I always like to clear that up. I would like to have thought that I could go out and buy it.
Thinking of it that way, my house is not ever going to be bought.
When Bob bought it, I walked out. It was actually closed when we actually bought it, when we closed the deal. And there were about 2 inches of water in the kitchen, and it just was the worst mess. I brought a friend out there, and she said, "What in the world? Why would you ever buy something like this?" And I will admit it did run through my mind. But
did you look at it? Did you see it before he said?
Oh, we had gone out. Oh, yes. And it took us 3 years. We negotiated for 3 years because we couldn't afford to buy it. So we had to keep a loan that they had and all that. There were 3 bankers that owned it. And so and they were out of town. Huh. And so, there was one banker and one oil guy and one somebody else. I'm sorry, I don't know. That was so many years ago, I can't remember. So it took us 3 years to buy it, and we'd get real close to a deal, and then it would fall apart. We had to have it designed a certain way for Bob and I to be able to afford to do it. So anyway, I guess when it closed, they decided to take a chance on us because they actually had to hold the loan.
Had it been closed a long time?
Not very long. Probably a couple of weeks. I mean, by that time, and it had water in it. There was a leak. And anyway, we closed the deal. We did close the deal right afterwards. That did push them a little, when it was closed. But it was just one little building. One little tiny building.
Which part of that building is there now?
It would be where it would be about half the size of the restaurant right now. Mm-hmm. And then the pumps were to the right as you looked at it. The pumps are now to the left. So that's what we had. And then there was a big storage tank on the property out of the, so you could actually see the gas storage tank. Now we've got them all buried and all that.
What else was at that exit off of the interstate at that time?
That's it. That's it.
So it's just one building.
And then there
a
was
gas station, basically.
And then to the left of the gas station restaurant building, there was a slab of a motel that had burned down.
Huh.
So that's going back a long time.
Do you know when that originally was built there? Was it at the time when they made the interstate? Because that wasn't really right on Highway 40. Is it? Highway 40 would have gone, was that? See, I don't know my history of the path of Highway 40 compared to Interstate 70 now.
The Highway 40's there, and I've been told there's an interesting dam kind of on the property that borders us to the west. That's an old concrete and rock dam, which you just don't see.
No.
And it's still there, still holding up. It's got a few cracks, and I was told that dam initially was to supply water to cars traveling on Highway 40. I don't know how accurate that is, but
I know Highway 40 had to be close to what it was doing right now.
Yeah.
So was there a gas station, restaurant there when it was just Highway 40? I wonder if it goes back that far. We're talking maybe 50s and before that.
Well,
don't know.
I was on the East Coast in the 50s.
Nobody's kept a history of this, prior to when you all took it over and started to build to it.
Yeah.
We're talking with Donna and Joe Bechtold about Midway Auto Truck Plaza. I'll call it that. I like that. So you took it in 1978.
Right.
Started running it in 1978. How long was it before that you were able to open it up and have it going again?
6
after
weeks.
It closed? 6 weeks.
I remember exactly because we both worked out there and cleaned it up and with a crew. And got it open, and that's how we started.
Was it affiliated with a particular gasoline company at that point in time?
Yes. Was it MFA? I think it might have been MFA, but I'm not sure.
Well, MFA.
Derby. No, Derby.
It was a Derby.
Derby.
I can remember the old Derby gas stations.
That's exactly. And the owner of Derby was one of the original three. And so we were tied in with Derby. We had no choice. We operated until Bob and I got it out of and into our name. We were tied in with Derby.
So the people that you said owned it, and they were absentee owners, and it had closed down before you bought it, were they the original people that had started that? Do you know that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm sorry, I don't know.
How far out did it seem at that point in time? I don't know whether, Midway now, people pop out there pretty easily. I don't know what it felt like maybe in the late 70s.
Well, first of all, Bob and I had never been in the restaurant business or the gas business. Bob actually was in the sod business while he was going to graduate school at the University of Missouri. Okay, he was in economics. But the reason that he bought Midway was because of the highway and the traffic. It was just the location.
So he looked at it and said, this has got to be a place that's going to make this.
This location. We didn't go out thinking we want to be in the restaurant business and started looking at restaurants. We
were
more
only
of a business
interested
decision. It was definitely a business decision.
Because I would think, what in the world? I mean, so he saw it as a way to make a living and make some money.
Yeah, well, and what we would do is at night we would drive up, before we bought it, we would drive up and down the highway, literally, and we would go in to truck stops or little, like Gasper's. We love to go to Gasper's.
Yeah, sure.
Because, we didn't have any education in this, but we figured we could learn it, so we would just ask everybody in the restaurant business. And you know what was amazing? How much information we got from people that would eventually be our competitors.
Yeah.
That's what surprised me.
Did you tell them what you were doing?
Well, not always. No
wonder they told you so much.
We just talked to them and just asked them, I mean, even to like how much, now Gasper's didn't, but like how much do you do on a shift? I mean, things like that.
How much do you mean? How much?
Like in the restaurant, how much business do you do?
Really?
Yeah.
Gasper's is one of those. Of course, we're going east of town now over at Kingdom City, but I grew up in Macon, Missouri. We'd swing down, and on the way to St. Louis, that was one of the places I remember stopping as a kid. It was always just a key place along the way. I'm trying to think what was in Columbia then. I mean, I don't know of any just really true truck stops type places right along the interstate right through Columbia.
Well, there wasn't, but one person that really helped us a lot was the manager of Country Kitchen. Because, see, they had a 24-hour. We needed to know how you run a 24-hour restaurant. I mean, it doesn't close. And for all the business people that might be listening to this, when you say you don't close, ever close, that's a whole different bag than closing at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I mean, it has a whole different...
I can see, help me understand this a bit more, I can see staffing it. You've got to have people that are willing to work those overnight graveyard shifts. Right. But what else is you never close down to clean? Just have a general overall, it's closed now. We can catch our breath and we can catch back up. It's just continuous.
Right. Right.
Are those the biggest things?
Well, yes. The other thing was trying to make it in the beginning when you didn't have any business at night. And I can tell you that one of the things that we thought we should do is cut down on expenses because we weren't making it. That restaurant was really tough to get to bring in a bottom line. And so at the time, I went out and the person that was we had a cook and a dishwasher. and I said, now, listen, there's no reason for us to have a dishwasher when we're not doing very much business. So I said to the cook, please, you're going to have to do the dishes.
Wow.
He quit. So I cooked that night, and I learned a big lesson. I will never disengage somebody at the beginning of a shift. That's it. I mean, I cooked that night. I'd never cooked in a restaurant, and I learned that I will never fire anybody at the beginning of a shift.
But I'm sure that you did a lot of things that you had never done before.
Oh, sure.
Now, the gas station was open 24 hours a day.
Right.
The restaurant, how big was the restaurant? What kind of seating did you have at that point in time at the very beginning?
Well, at the very beginning, I would say 50.
Yeah.
At the most, and then we added on, and
did most of the employees come from Columbia, or were you drawing them from out at the Midway area?
I would say probably Columbia.
College kids sometimes?
No. College kids have never been. We very seldom ever attract college kids. There's too many other jobs in Columbia.
Sure.
But we, college kids aren't our.
At that point in time, what did you make as the, I don't know what they call it, specialties, or what were you known for at the restaurant?
We really, and of course this was hard for me because I'm always dieting. Anybody that knows me, I'm always watching what I eat. But we specialized in home cooked cobblers, desserts, when you think of a truck stop.
Always pies and cobblers are
and
always
meatloaf
something.
And potatoes and fried chicken and and really we had really good cooks back in the kitchen cooking daily specials.
Joe, you got anything to add to this? I mean, you're listening to this.
Breakfast. I mean, I think from the very beginning, I know even as a kid, I loved going out there for breakfast, and I think Midway's always been known for good breakfasts, omelets, biscuits, and gravy. I mean, that's been the same.
Was it breakfast 24 hours a day also,
Yes.
if you wanted it?
Yes.
Did you have any long-term employees out there, and they just stayed there for a long time?
That's one thing that we feel very grateful for, and probably kept Bob and I sane.
Yeah.
The majority of our employees have stayed with us longer than I think what is normally accepted, right?
Oh, I think in today's society, a lot longer. And we have one lady actually that should be in here sitting here with us, Mamie. I like to joke, came with the property. She worked for she worked for the previous owners in the diner as a waitress, and she still is there today working for us. So she's been there. She started in 1976 working. It was the old Coach Light Inn at the time when my
It was
folks,
called the Coach Light Inn.
It was called the Coach Light Inn, which she, if that's wrong, blame it on Mamie. That's what she told me.
I'm not going to doubt her. I imagine she knows what it is. Does she? What is it about her that I mean? She just loves this atmosphere.
She just loves it. I think I'm.
That's 36 years or so. At least 35 years.
She has. I think she's almost like She loves it. She's like a mother figure probably to a lot of people that come and go, and everybody knows her. People, So I think she's developed so many friendships over the years, and makes she makes enough money to want to stay there, and has enjoyed it. And gosh, after 36 years,
of course, she's an
almost can't
excellent
leave.
waitress.
Well, she has to do her job well, or else she wouldn't have lasted that long.
Exactly.
And I imagine people come in and ask for her.
She makes
That's right.
it look stressless. really.
And that can be
just,
pretty stressful, too, when you're someplace like that. You've got a lot of things happening and going around there. How many employees would you say there are now?
100?
Close to 100.
Close to 100. And you started out when it was just the restaurant or the gas station with a cook and a dishwasher, and then you all were doing a lot of the other stuff. You probably was this a full-service gas station? Was this a gas station when you came in that people came out and did
Yeah, because I don't think we had the kind of pumps that people could. I mean, yes, we had to run out there and. I mean, I never did. But there was somebody.
I think they did they washed your windshields for you early on.
Check oil if you needed to check.
Oil.
I mean, of course, it's the late 70s. It wasn't much later than that, though, I don't think, when self-service came on.
That's right,
because a lot of people started doing that. Did you have any records of what gas was selling for when you opened up this gas station?
I don't know. No, I don't. I actually, though, I mean, Bob has always been, because of his economics background, has always kept from day one how much business we've done every day. Wow. In all areas of our, in other words, we separate the restaurant, the convenience store, the bar, the motel. And so every day we have daily figures. So we could actually go back. I mean, if we were in our office, we could say, this is what we did on that day. I don't know what gas was selling for.
Interesting. We're going to take a break and we'll come back and visit more. We're talking about Midway Truck Plaza, and we haven't even gotten into when they started adding all the other things onto it that it is now. We'll get more details about that when we continue with the Bechtolds on News Talk 1400 KFRU.
KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series.
The Heritage Show today is focusing on just about 3 or 4 miles west of Columbia at the Midway Truck Plaza there. Donna Bechtold, Joe Bechtold are in the studio with us as we talk about the history of this place, where they told us early in our interview today that they bought in 1978. I'm curious, 1978, again, just to recap, it was a restaurant and a gas station.
Right.
And do you know how many pumps there were then? Two pumps.
2 pumps.
When you drive by there now, or when you go there now, it's amazing how many semi-trucks are there. Was this a semi-truck stop, or was this a truck stop? Because with 2 pumps, you weren't pumping gas to semis, I don't think, were you?
Well, we must have had diesel there. Because go ahead, Joe. What?
Well, I don't think for the most part we did a lot of truck business at all until you rebuilt and put the fuel islands out on the south side with the diesel. And then I think even then, in answer to your question, I can know from talking to Dad that it was hard initially letting trucks know that we were there. And I think Dad bought some old trailers that he could buy pretty inexpensively and just started using. We would renting them out. We'd rent them out for storage, but we'd place them right there on the lot by I-70. So that people could see the trailers, and as trucks would drive by, they'd see them, and they would kind of know intuitively that they could come in.
I mean, that's a nice little thing to do there. But I'm curious as to where were truck drivers stopping then, or was there just not that traffic in the 70s, 80s?
No, there were big truck stops, and that's where they were stopping.
I see.
They were stopping.
Like the Flying J and all those kinds of things.
Right.
And, I mean, I guess they've been there a long time. I haven't paid much attention to those kinds of truck stops.
But there were not a lot of them. I mean, I know Dad told when Dad first, when he rebuilt in the restaurant, it burned down, and he built it in 1980, I think. Is that 81?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry, 84. But
84. Okay, 84. I guess you expanded in 80.
81 we expanded,
81.
And that's up until 81. For the first 3 years, from 78 to 81, we just tried to get our feet
make
wet.
It go.
Yeah, make it go.
Yeah.
But in 81, we changed the pumps and we put them to the left of the building. And then we expanded. We started to expand. We added a lounge, we added a convenience store, and a restaurant. I mean, we made the restaurant bigger. Mm-hmm. So that was, and then that's when Daddy went and bought, or Bob.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Joey. That's when Bob went and bought 25 of those pup trailers and parked them right at the back of the lot. And it was unbelievable. It was probably the best marketing thing. I mean, I couldn't imagine why we were buying. That's all we needed was trailers. But what it did is it made us look instantaneously busy. It was just unbelievable. And then trucks started coming in. It was sort of like calling ducks or something. I mean, really, it was amazing, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. It was really amazing.
So that would lead me to ask then, in current day, how many of those trailers out there are used for storage, or how many of them are real truckers'
Oh, yeah,
trailers?
no, we've got them. Yeah.
Yeah, but do we have them parked along the back?
Oh,
wall?
no, not in the back. Yeah, no, in current day, now we don't. Now we need the space. And
Yeah.
so with the exception of 2 that we own that we have in front of some of Boone Electric's poles that are a little close to the curb that trucks will back into, everything else is just trucks.
Do you keep,
in.
Joe, a record of how many, I don't know if this is a fair question, I don't know, the most trucks you've ever had there at one time, or the number of truckers that stop on any given week or day or year?
You know, I can't say that we do keep that record. I will say that by the time it gets dark, most nights we're filling up completely, and so space is always a little bit of a premium after dark, and then of course they take off and get going early, and there's plenty of space during the day.
What's the busiest part that's out there now? Is it the restaurant? Was that the?
It really varies. I mean, last weekend we had an event where we had almost 5,000 people, the Mud Run up at the Expo Center.
Yes.
And so the weekend before that we had a concert where we teamed up with the Blue Note up in our outdoor amphitheater, again 4,000 people. So we have weekends that are just hopping. We had but then I guess on a consistent basis it would probably it varies, but it would be between the convenience store and the restaurant, and it just varies depending on what's going on and the time of day.
And Larry's Boots.
All
Larry's
of them
Boots
tends
to
they kind of feed off of each other.
In the antique mall, it's
Was there ever an idea of adding something and it didn't work?
Well, yes, Bob put in a pizza parlor in the. Originally, we had the back door lounge on the first floor. And then we burned down. See, after we did all this expansion, let me get my dates right here. When did we burn, Joe? In 84. Okay, so in 81.
What happened there? What happened with the fire?
Fire, it burned the whole main building down.
You know what started it?
We started expansion in 81, and we just had finished about 83, maybe closer to 84. And they never could figure out what caused the fire, but they think that sometimes when you redo all the restaurant equipment that the wiring or something, I don't know, but the last thing we ever wanted was a fire. I mean, we had just started. I mean, that's why we built on, because we could see that it was going to make
off.
it.
So what was it like? I mean, did you get a call? What do you remember? What that was
like?
I
remember exactly what that.
So what happened?
We got a call, and a restaurant employee called us and said, "We're on fire."
Was this during the day or night?
It was nighttime.
Oh, my.
And so I said, oh, my goodness. So Bob and I got in the car, and we drove and when we got on the stadium exit, we could see the fire from the stadium exit, and Bob said, this is bad. And I said, oh, don't be silly. And he said, when you could see a fire this far away, it is bad. And he was right. It burned to the ground.
Wow. But then you weren't deterred. You just started building again.
2 weeks later, we were in business. And what Bob did is within 3 days or 4 days, he pulled in a double-wide trailer right next to the building and put wood things, because in order for us to have a liquor license, we had to connect to this burned-down building as we built up. You have to be connected.
I see.
And so anyway, he put our bars, what do I want to say, booths out on the driveway,
the old slab,
on the
basically.
driveway, and we hung plants, and we actually started the restaurant. And we had to make some adjustments to the restaurant. You have to have a triple sink and all that. And we ran the restaurant out of that double wide, and people would sit out there on Friday and watch the builders build.
And this would have been 83 or 84,
right?
Something
Well,
like that.
yeah, right after we burned in July of '84, and we were back open in the new building in November. But what Bob said was, what he said was, we cannot lose our business, and I'm afraid if we close down and wait to build, so we've got to keep operating. I mean, I just couldn't even think about what we should do, and he had it done in 2 weeks.
We're talking about Midway Auto Truck Plaza and so much more out there. How many different businesses would you say are out there? I don't know how you would define this, but you mentioned Larry's Boots, you mentioned the lounge, the restaurant, the convenience store, the hotel, or the motel, expo center. We haven't talked about that. We can do that here in just a little bit. But how many different entities or businesses?
And then we have a truck repair.
Yeah.
And then we have a daycare center on the property. Now, some of these, like Larry Boots, he rents from us. And we also, the truck repair, is that separate?
They lease, they're separate. They lease. There's a trailer company, trailer company.
And
who
fireworks.
lease from us, and my brother runs the fireworks and kind of owns that.
Up on the hill there where you have, like Joe was describing, some of the things up there. You talked before we started our program about how you would call into KFRU when Roger Manning was a morning host, and 5 days a week or so you'd talk about what was going on out there. What were you talking about? What were the conversations?
Well, during that time, see, when Bob built the Expo Center, we learned something very quickly. It's not like opening the doors to a restaurant on Interstate 70. With an Expo Center, it requires marketing. When we took over the truck stop, we just opened the door and people started coming because there's 40,000 cars a day. Okay, so we just had to turn the lights on basically and then learn how to run it. Expo Center was an entirely different bag. He built that and hired a staff, but we didn't, that was all great. We just didn't have any business. So I had actually sort of semi-retired at that point. I mean, I wasn't out there every day. Once the restaurant got going and everything, I went home and stayed home. And Bob came back and said, you got to come out. So I went out. And the bottom line is that I started marketing it, the Expo Center, and it took me 4 years. It really, but when I left in 4 years, we had every weekend rented.
What was his inspiration for starting that, for building that and saying, we need to have an expo center? I mean, that's kind of unusual. I mean, that's not part of a normal truck plaza.
No, and he didn't have any idea what that was. The reason we have commercial property in the front where the truck stop is, there's one little wedge where the expo center goes up, like a pie wedge. And that 60 acres was not commercial. And so he just thought, I really need to get all of it so it's continuous. We have commercial. That's all he wanted to do was get 60 acres zoned commercial. He never thought about an expo center, but when we went into the Boone County planning, they said, you got to tell us what you're going to do. And that's when he said, well, I'll just put an expo center on it. and that all sounded good, but oh my goodness.
So who did you market it to? And what was your target those first 4 years?
Every person that I met during that time, I'd say, are you involved in any hobbies that involve a lot of people? So it came up to horses, cattle, boats, all that. And so I would just started calling like executive directors of big entities. I mean, big, like the what do I want to say? The big horse things.
Yeah, the Home Lawn and Garden Show.
Shows.
I think
American Quarter Horses.
Well, American Quarter Horse. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I marketed. But the first thing I did is I went and got Hearns's list.
From the Hearns
And
Center
I called them. I was able to get a few of their things. That was great. At that time, they had a different philosophy over there. They wanted to keep a nice, clean building, and of course, I didn't care if they got my building dirty. They can just come on out and do. So I was able to get some of the people that put on things at the Hearns.
Did you ever book something and then as it started to occur, hold your breath and say, "What did I do? Why is this here?"
Yes. The biggest thing that comes to mind is the 4th of July fireworks. They used to have it at Cosmo, and
I know.
Well, anyway, I worked with them, and they thought it'd be great. And the minute I signed that deal, Bob said, "Oh God, I'm really worried," and I went, "Well, it's a little late now. I signed it. What you should have told me." And so anyway, that really was
turned out to be tough, didn't it?
It was very tough
because you had a lot of people out there. They came out to watch the 4th of July fireworks, and if I understand the story right, then it was kind of tough to get a lot of people who are trying to leave at one time.
Well,
out and on
That
the
was
road?
tough. That was tough. But the toughest thing is that the traffic all gelled on 70, and what I didn't realize, every other event people had to get up there and to be in it. But see, with fireworks, you can park on 70. And so what people did is they parked on 70, and they had their chairs out on Interstate 70. It was a disaster. I mean, and I remember listening to KFRU the next day and somebody saying, well, they had a call-in show, and they said, I can't remember who the host was, and he said, well, are you home yet? I mean, literally, and that literally was
I can imagine the highway patrol or somebody that's in charge of I-70 not being very happy with that.
It was, yes, that was the most difficult. Everything was a new learning experience because with the Expo Center, every week it's different. See, a restaurant is hard, but you know what? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you get it eventually. I mean, if you do it enough and stay in business.
So how many events would happen at the Expo Center that day, and has it improved? I mean, I don't know what kind of bookings you have now, how busy you are now.
Well, we've changed it. I mean, I think at the time, I know, back 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I moved to town, we had an event every weekend. Now, just because you have an event every weekend doesn't mean you're making money. You have a tremendous fixed cost, which, I think anybody who's followed the Boone County Fairgrounds would knows of the some of the problems they've had. But we 3 years ago shut it down and converted it to a 60,000 square foot antique mall. And so we've made some changes there. Now we still have an outdoor facility that, we have events as they come up, and that's worked out,
I understand.
better and more
I knew you
profitable.
still had events out there. I guess I didn't know that it was an antique area. Now, how successful is that? How full is that?
We're full. We have 350 dealers, 60,000 square feet. We're probably the size of all the antique malls in, central Missouri combined.
Have you looked, either one of you, at other entities that are similar in scope as to what you have out at Midway Truck Plaza?
I don't know that there would be a similar one. There's an Iowa 80 truck stop but I still think even so, it's more geared towards it's big, and it's got the diversity. Or it doesn't have quite the diversity. Everything is still kind of geared to truckers. I think kind of like what Mom said, I don't know that Dad was ever really in the truck stop business. He was more in the commercial property and the development business. And so his motivations and the things that drove him weren't necessarily just truck stop related.
Did he ever do any of you, or did you? I think once the truckers did start to depend on that and they start showing up, I imagine some of them became like regulars. You'd say, hey, I know these people. And then you knew you were providing something that was important to them.
Oh yeah. That's the mainstay of our business,
Sure.
as far as getting people to keep coming back. But I do want to tell you something. When we first bought the truck stop, Bob and I bought a used motorhome. And we took the longest vacation we've ever taken with the kids before we did this expansion in 81. And we drove around the country. And we stopped at every truck stop we went by, didn't we, Joe?
Yep.
And we, I'm originally from the East Coast, and I'll tell you, the first time we pulled into a truck stop and Bob said, they have showers. We're going to take showers. I thought, oh, my. And then he'd stand outside and he'd say, now you go in and take a shower. And then he'd give me a measuring tape and measure. So he wanted me to take, at that time we didn't have digital cameras, or cell phones where we could have actually taken pictures. And he would actually literally draw out what the shower was and everything. So that's what we did. But I can tell you from that trip, I never saw anything like what we ended up with at Midway.
Yeah.
And I think Joey is right. It wasn't that Bob was in the truck stop business. Bob was president of the Missouri Truck Stop Association one year. And so we went to a lot of conventions. Mm-hmm. And we were just, we're just different.
We're going to take our final break. We'll come back one more segment on our Heritage program. We're talking about Midway Truck Plaza with Donna Bechtold, Joe Bechtold, our guest. This is News Talk 1400 KFRU.
KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series.
We're enjoying our visit today on the Heritage program with the Bechtolds, Joe and Donna, as we have talked about Midway Truck Plaza, west of town, 3 or 4 miles, and they bought it in 1978. It was not open at that point in time. It was a gas station and a restaurant. It had been closed for a while. They had to slosh through a couple of inches of water on the floor of the restaurant. Then they got it opened up pretty quickly, and then they started adding to it. Survived a fire, as you heard in our last segment, and we don't have a whole lot of minutes here, but I'm just curious, is because we're talking about everything that's there. And you, Donna, at the end of our last segment, talking about this camper trip that you took to visit as many truck stops as you can. And, Joe, you got your hair cut at one of them, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And so came back with the idea of needing a barber. So you had a barber for a while. And now what is that, Joe?
Well, now that the barber shop is now a tattoo shop run by, it's Under the Gun Tattoos. Gino is who's featured on Truck Stop Missouri and Truck Stop USA. You've seen Gino there.
Do you appreciate, I mean, there's a certain, and I like this, and I like the kitschiness about certain things. I mean, there's a certain kitschiness about truck stops. I mean, you know that. Do you magnify that on purpose? I mean, as something you say, you know what, sure, folks, it's part of the lore of people out on the road. I mean, a lot of us probably have memories of stopping. I remember, like I said earlier, stopping at Gasper's out there because that was a place on our way to St. Louis, and there have been other places that you just stop. There's something to it.
I think so, yeah. And I think if you come into the diner, you'll notice it's still the old booths. I mean, we're still, we're in the county, so we still have smoking. And I'm not a smoker.
Mm-hmm.
But there, certainly you can walk in there at given times of the day, and it might be 90% non-smoking section. But boy, there's other times in the evenings when it's 90% smoking, in the smoking section. But so I think, just having the whole, like you said, the kitschiness. Yeah, we certainly don't shy away from that.
Well, I mean, I just think I think it's neat, and I think of some of the things that they sell at truck stops. Do you remember people? I mean, when you started stocking it with stuff that people might be interested in buying as they stopped along there, I don't know whether it be belt buckles or sunglasses or whatever. Do you remember those times?
Oh, yes. I'll tell you what I really remember, though, is when you couldn't buy liquor in Columbia. And we could sell liquor because our liquor license was all under one roof, and we sold enough food to be able to sell liquor on Sunday. People would line up on Sunday. So, we've had to change as things, then Columbia started selling liquor, but I'm telling you, those were great days. So a lot of our store was, we had quite a stock of liquor because we sold a lot of liquor. I mean, really, wasn't that something? We'd ring a bell.
I mean, they still talk about, I think it was 11 or noon. It was noon, and there'd be a line all the way out wrapped around the building. I mean, you took a Super Bowl Sunday or something like that. The manager, Randy Trierweiler of the C store, he's still the manager today, and he was back then, and he tells stories of just the type of business. And of course back then also, difference then is very few people used credit cards, so it was all cash. And so he just talks about this crazy cash business and just the volume. You couldn't keep the beer stocked in the cooler. There'd be one person in the cooler full time just keeping.
What else? I know you wrote down some notes here, and sometimes I get to the end of a program and I haven't covered everything that somebody wanted to talk about. Are there other notes there, Donna, that you were looking at and you said, wow, I don't want this to end before I have a chance to mention this?
No.
One other, I think along with the kitchen or the, kind of the crazy off the wall things, I mean, the other side of the road, Dad bought, there's 50 acres, and that's where Fearfest Haunted House is. Uh-huh. And that kind of came about through just an odd way, but certainly now it's one of the most popular haunted houses in the country. And then my brother runs his retail fireworks tent from that side of the road as well. So that side is another commercial side that eventually, grow.
Years ago did a remote out there at that haunted house.
Did you?
So, yes,
You know it well.
It's a scary place from the outside.
It is.
Especially when it is getting to the fall and the light disappears quicker and things like that. Do you have, is there anything, have you reached the limit of what you want to do, or are you always looking for new ideas?
Always looking for new ideas.
Oh, yeah. Life is so exciting out there. There were a lot of years when I thought, oh, my goodness, what have we done? But you know what? When I look back, I wouldn't trade it. Yeah. The excitement, I can honestly say we've never been bored. Now, I can honestly say we've had challenges where I wonder if we're going to make it. But it's just we have crazy stories and we have a lot of good memories.
Yeah. Anytime ever anything scary, like people that were running from the police or cops or something, cross country, pull off of the exit there and say, fill it up, I'm in a hurry, I got to get out of here.
We could write a book about those type of cases. As a matter of fact, Barb Cribbs, who worked in the office for 13 years, or maybe more than that, she said she's got many chapters of a book written. Wow. She told me 13 chapters she's
encourage
completed.
Her to do that. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, exactly. And so in answer to that, we've had I know 5-6 years ago, Dad and I were standing out on the fuel islands working on a project, and we saw some people running towards us in yellow windbreakers, and which is at 11 in the morning on a Wednesday is kind of odd, and they ran right past us. There were 4 of them, and when they got past us, the back said FBI on the, and they kept on running over to the on ramp, and there was a truck pulled over, and there were some cars there, and I never read what happened with it. Don't know what it was, but that's just one very minor thing.
The world really does just kind of pass by, doesn't it?
It does. Things are happening there, and you don't necessarily know what it is that's going on.
Man, well, we're going to have to end it at that. Maybe we can talk again at this program if the Heritage Series lasts long enough. But I really do appreciate you coming in and sharing these memories. I think a lot of people they'll resonate with a lot of people who said, yeah, I stood in line on Sundays trying to buy the liquor, or I passed through there, or I love the cobbler, or whatever. Donna Bechtold, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank
Joe,
you for having me.
it's good to talk to you again.
Thank you, David.
It's the Heritage Show. Thanks for joining us this week on News Talk 1400 KFRU.
You've been listening to the KFRU Heritage Series, celebrating our history and heritage of Columbia and Boone County. Listen each Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The KFRU Heritage Series. From News Talk 1400, KFRU, Columbia.